And we are live for day 2 of the spring cleaning challenge. And today, honestly, this might be my favorite day. And that's not true. But I am very excited to be teaching today about decluttering your home. And today we are diving into that second layer of home, the home we all know as home, and what most people define as home. As always, in order to actually open up this space, we're going to drop in to a deep, little quick prayer before we get into today's teaching. So, if you are able, closing your eyes and dropping in with me for a moment. Dear God, thank you for gathering us here today in your name, and thank you for bringing everybody here all for the intention of creating a home that feels beautiful, that feels simplified, that gives them peace. I pray that everything that is shared in today's class brings everybody home to themselves and to you. I pray that through this work, they may find a sense of peace within themselves and within you as we move through this world, and that all of the work that they do inside of their home gets to ripple out in every single thing that they do outside of their home and on the earth. Amen. Okay. So last time we talked, well, let me back up. For those who do not know who I am Joanna Dryling. I'm a life coach and home organizer, and I help my clients simplify and enrich their lives so that they can truly thrive. And the simplifying and enriching comes a lot down to their home and their wealth, which is mainly why we are here today and why we are even having this challenge and doing this course in the first place. So last time we talked about the body and decluttering the soma and the different processes that are happening on a primal level when you are wanting to do some deeper work around yourself and decondition and declutter what it is that is happening in your body. And I know that y'all are here for a spring cleaning challenge. Like, it's not lost on me that you did not probably want to talk about your body at all. But that as a foundation for what we are talking about today is an integral piece of what we need to know. So, not unlike the body and how it holds an imprint of your life experience, not only your life experience, but of all the lives that came in front of you, what is imprinted within your home, both in the architecture and the structure, to all of your being, all of your belongings. So it's not only the architecture that is creating an impact, but it's also the belongings that you hold and how they are organized within your space that will also create an imprint upon you. So energetically speaking, though, just to like draw out this example a little bit, wherever you go, everywhere you walk in the world has an imprint upon you and has its imprint, and it is imprinting upon you. And the real question is whether or not we have awareness of it, which is exactly what we're working on in this whole entire course. And now think about if everywhere you walk in the world is creating an impact and it has some sort of an imprint upon you, think about how deeply the space that you're inhabiting the most, aka your home, is imprinting upon you. And this is especially true for the people who work from home, who don't have an outside office, who are not leaving their property on a regular basis to go work. Like, if you are working from home and living in your home, then your home has one of the most profound effects that could happen. It is a huge imprint for you and your energetic system. And because of this imprint, whenever we are decluttering and tidying our home, to me, especially when we go balls to the walls, like deep, like decluttering, and we are going through the whole house, not just a little room, when we are going through that type of a state and when we are going through that big level of decluttering, that is a whole new chapter of your life, period. Like, it signifies a whole new chapter because when we're decluttering and letting go of things that have been attached to certain identities or memories, whatever stays with us is contributing to the life that we are co creating with God from that point forward, period. Like it is involved in your life. It is an aspect and hello, what are the words? Maybe I shouldn't have had full calf coffee today when I'm teaching a class. So I'm just too hyped. But when we are now I don't even remember the train of thought. But when we are your stuff is an extension of your energetic field. We talked about this on our in our last class. It is an extension of your energetic field. So when you like let go of things within that field, then it naturally creates more space within your own internal field, which is why it has so much importance and why we are dedicating a whole entire day. So, not to mention that once you are creating space in your home, you genuinely, and I just said this, it's like you genuinely create space in your life for more blessings and intentions to arrive. The thing about the universe is that it does not operate in a vacuum. So energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. And that is true even in this. Like, even when you get rid of something out of your field, that creates space. And that space won't remain empty for very long. So, to really drive home and share about and really like exemplify what is happening in terms of the spatial attunement and how this is creating an impact, we're actually going to drop into a quick meditation and a real quick centering practice. So, an attunement practice so that we can get in touch with this feeling. Before we dive in, I'm also going to take a few sips of water. So, as we are arriving today, as you're arriving into the room, drop it into your body. Don't necessarily close your eyes because you actually do need your eyes open for this process. But take a few deep breaths in and out, and deep breaths down into your chest, down into your belly, whatever allows you to get more centered and deeply in your body in a few breaths. Once you've dropped into your body, start attuning to the space of your home, how the walls and the ceilings create the room that you're in inside your home. Start attuning to, and attuning just means awareness. So start expanding your awareness around the space of your home and the architecture from which you regularly inhabit. What does it make you feel? Is there contraction or do you feel open? Does it feel like the walls are caving in on you or does it feel expansive? Now tune into the windows, the light that they let in or otherwise. And again, notice what is coming up in your body. Now tune into how wherever you are in your house, tune into the particular room that you're in and tune into how the furniture feels to you. And if you even need to, walk through the room. What is the flow that you feel as you move through this space? Is it jarring? Is there like quick turns and corners? And I mean, of course, there are corners, but is it a jarring sort of flow around the space? Or does it make sense? What is the flow? Again, is it expansive or is it contractive? Now that you've tuned into the furniture and how it flows, tune into your belongings around you in the room. The decorations, even the piles in front of you. Tune into what is happening in your space in terms of the objects, belongings, and the things that surround you. For everything you see, what do you feel? And as you observe the belongings around you, tune into the pieces that bring you the most anabolic and expansive energy. What are their characteristics? Why do they feel expansive to you? Now, with this in your awareness, what belongings feel most in alignment to you to bring with you into your next phase of life? Make a little mental list so that you can keep this in mind through your own decluttering process. Now, looking around your space, orienting yourself to your environment and where you are, what would need to happen for you to feel the way you want to feel in your home? Maybe you want to feel peace, which means you would want less clutter. Maybe you would want to feel freedom, which again may mean less clutter. But or do you want the space to feel beautiful? Does it actually need more decoration and more embellishment in the space? But this really comes down to what you actually want to feel in your home and looking at what would need to happen for you to feel that way in your home, barring renovation, because that is outside the scope of right now. And as you've attuned to your space, make mental notes, or even write them down, but you can come back to the Zoom land. We're not in Zoom. Come back to the video and we will begin. And I hope that was helpful in actually attuning you to your environment and how it creates that impact. But think about the fact that, like, you know how we talked about on last week's call that you have some millions of megabits of information processing through your brain at one point, any point. Like a lot, some of that information is the architectural structure and the belongings around you. So that is the main reason that we went into that attunement meditation. And that meditation practice, whatever you want to call it, the attunement was really to demonstrate to you that the architecture in which we inhabit on a regular basis, the architecture, the structures that we are actually inhabiting on a regular basis. Let me hold on real fast. Let's see here. I want to actually pull you. You'd think I would have already gotten this definition, but we want to actually define it because I'd be out here just using architecture, not realizing that some people don't actually know what that really means. Architecture is, by definition, the art or practice of designing and constructing buildings. It is, and it is different than construction. It is the art and technique of designing and building structures encompassing the entire process from conception to construction. So you can be a, general contractor and not necessarily be an architect, but I'm telling you, you can notice a difference between a general contractor designed home and an architect designed home. And it's partially because their design expertise is in such a way where they are thinking about the impact that it's having on your body and that they're taught in this way. So our all the architecture that we inhabit on a regular basis, whether or not it's our home, has a profound unconscious physiological effect on our body. And our home, again, has the greatest impact because generally, by and large, and also has increased in numbers, that's the space that we're inhabiting the most in our lifetime. Whether or not it changes, like most of us have had different homes throughout our lifetimes, but it's changing, but it also is creating the most impact. It is often unperceived unless we are aware of it. And as we are, and like part of what this course is doing is us becoming more aware of it. And again, like one of those, to bring it back to what I was saying, one of the things about one of the processes that we are in that is happening inside of our subconscious mind is the fact that the architecture is creating an impact, and that it is also it's something we don't have to think about. It's something that's happening, but we're not necessarily aware of it. And again, like that's what we're doing in this course, is really becoming more aware of it. And so this really has to do, like how this has a physiological effect is again the architecture and the construction, like how the structure of your home is built versus as well as the belongings that inhabit your home. So let's think about this example. We have a house that has very few windows, low ceilings, and there's clutter everywhere. So there's not a lot of natural light. It also feels encased in on, and there's clutter everywhere. Like that type of an environment, at least to me, like I couldn't live in that type of environment. That's how much of a space diva I am, where I need to have higher ceilings, some more natural light, and definitely not clutter everywhere. um, Now, alternatively, think about the house that I'm sitting in right now. It has high ceilings, there are even decorated ceilings, and a lot of natural light that is also tidy and well maintained. Like, genuinely sit with, and based on the attunement that we just had, how would either of these make you feel? Like for me, the high ceilings in particular are an expansive anabolic space to me because of how it makes the body feel expansive. Like there are more and more studies that are connecting how a space designed with high ceilings actually expands our consciousness, and how sitting in a circle actually creates more community and conversation because we're in a circle and not school sitting at a square, and like actually creates more flow because we're around something that has flow. So I am digressing, but let's be honest here. And like that's really what we're talking about here, is that difference between those different spaces. And frankly, most architects are not necessarily designing with the physiological effects in mind. It is becoming more known and more present in the field because this is becoming more known, and how much it has been, it's becoming, neuroarchitecture is a thing for a reason. And it's one of my favorite things. And it's also fascinating because if we can design our buildings from the ground up in a way that's more supportive for the nervous system, we will literally have better well-being, period, overall. If we can design schools in a way where it's expansive for learning, think about what that could do. I mean, really. Anyways, I don't want to get on my TED talk about that because I do actually do talks about that and we'll be doing more. But most like most architects do not operate in that way, but it is becoming more so. But Frank Lloyd Wright is a really good example that I wanted to offer here. If you are in the Grand Rapids area, in the Chicago area, then you have the opportunity to actually go see one of his buildings. And I highly recommend going to, I mean, he's all over the country. He's one of the most well-known architects. You would dub him a starchitect in the architecture world. And he is one of the forefathers of neuroarchitecture and designing buildings in a way where they are actually helping the well-being and aiding the well-being of the inhabitants. Where he will actually, there's a house in Grand Rapids called the Meyer May House, and I love this building. And it's so amazing because what he would do is he would actually, and it's all over his architecture that he does this type of a thing, where if he's got this grand living room type situation, he'll create specifically, probably not even to code, small hallways, like low ceilinged hallways. So then when you go out into the main area, into that grand living room, it actually feels more grand to your nervous system because you just went from a small, confined little space out into this like huge area. And like he would bring that kind of drama into his architecture so that you could feel the physiological effects of how the architecture is affecting you. Now, I acknowledge that all of us do not have the capacity to build our homes from the ground up. And we also probably don't have the capacity to even renovate our homes. It's and I recommend that if you are actually going for a renovation inside of your home, go for an architect. Do not hire a general contractor because you will later regret that, because they're not actually designing with your well-being and your welfare in mind. Like architects as a profession are agreed to agreed to protecting the health, safety, and welfare of all human beings inside of their buildings. Like that is part of their core tenet as architects. And I don't think that's anywhere up in a general contractors. And so they're actually thinking about that. And it would be fantastic for us all to be able to renovate our homes to the specifications that would better suit our needs. But again, an architect is really good at that. And if you are get to that point, then congratulations. If you can get to the point where you're building a house from the ground up, anyways, congratulations. And take advantage of it because you will feel a physiological difference. But since we all don't have that at our disposal, we really do want to take advantage of what we can take advantage of inside of our home. And what we have more control over and is readily accessible to us at all times is the macro organization of our home. So that would be the flow of like the furniture, and then therefore the flow of the furniture and like how the space actually flows from one room to another and inside the room itself. And that's the macro organization of it. Now we go down even further, excuse me, and like that flow of furniture and everything is really where feng shui has its most prominent points and like where its expertise lies. And then we can look at the micro organization of our belongings, and that is of our belongings, and by what is around and in our house, right? And so this is why decluttering is so important because it is the thing that we have the most control over inside of our home. Like pretty often, sometimes we are confined with the furniture just based on the floor plan and how a home is structured. We actually don't have as much freedom in that regard. But the thing that we have the most control over are our belongings. And this is also why creating space in your home creates so much spaciousness inside of your body and mind at the same time. That by decluttering your home, you are decluttering your soma naturally. You're decluttering the mind, you're decluttering your emotions, and you're decluttering the body. And honestly, it's not magic, but it might as well be sometimes in my mind because it's just amazing to me to see how that happens. So like as I've kind of talked about, but your belongings are not just things to make your house more beautiful or to aid you in living your life. Your belongings are an extension of your energetic field. Your home is essentially an extension of your energetic field. And really, when you really think about it, like your belongings hold the energy of all of your memories that you attach to them and all of the associations that you have with particular items. Like, let me give you a perfect example. My boyfriend is an ex locksmith, and he has all of his locksmithing stuff in his main closet in his bedroom. And what do you think happens every single time he sees his locksmithing stuff? And like when I say ex, I mean that he like has gone off and started a different career, and he kind of considers his locksmithing business a failure. So if he's looking at all of that stuff, what do you think goes through his mind? That he's a failure, that he screwed up, that all these things, right? But let's say you move all that locksmithing stuff into the attic. He wants to keep it, but like you move it into the attic, you don't get the consistent association and that energy that's bringing you down and the feeling that you get from that stuff. And then in my case, like I have a mug in the back of my cabinet there that's from an ex. And so literally every time I see this mug, I get a little annoyed. And I'm like, oh, I really need to move that mug. And like, I really need to put it somewhere else, or I don't know, get rid of it. Like, because the association of that thing is with him and not necessarily something positive. And we don't, yeah, okay, I won't even digress. This also explains our emotional attachment with certain things. And it's why, like, it is the memory that that object holds. Like, my pair of shoes, they're slip-on shoes that I got into a scooter accident in Mexico when I was living there, and, like, the amount of times I've gone to get rid of those shoes because for a while they just reminded me of that scooter accident, now they're just, like, my slippers more or less to go between my house and my mom's house, and, like, to do outside yard work, and, like, they're just a crappy pair of shoes, but, like, realistically, I need to get rid of them and, like, settle that broke girl energy, and, like, that's for next class, um, and just get them out, right? Because like, those shoes are, like, actually have a scrape where I scraped my foot on the scooter accident. There is physical representation of the scooter accident on those shoes, and so, like, I think of that every time I wear those shoes. So that, like, goes for shoes, clothing, like, all the things, and it's because of our associations their associations that some yeah, because of some hello. Because of their associations, some items can actually keep us looping in the same pattern. Now, I'm not saying that when you let go of all of your shirts that you wore in high school, that you'll automatically heal all of your more immature patterns and you'll maturate that quickly. But letting go of those belongings will loosen the grip around those patterns. And like, yes, okay. I'm sorry. I am, next time, no caffeine. Um, like I have in the past, when I was first getting into this work and understanding energetic design and also trying to go live van life, I was inconsistent. Like maybe every quarter, maybe every 6 months, I was in a place of getting decluttering my stuff. And every single time that I let go of more things came in, different things came in, different realities were, like, coming in. I was like, "Oh, whoa." Like, I even literally, like, got rid of some stuff, and then, like, all of a sudden, I found the van that I eventually bought. Like, it was like I mean, I'm not saying you get rid of stuff and then you manifest stuff, but sometimes, like, again, creating that space creates an energetic magnetism for more blessings to come in because there's literally actually space for it to land, literally. So, I want to give you the example of hoarders, for instance. And, they are people who keep absolutely everything, like even trash in really extreme situations. And, like, let's think about hoarders. Even if they're in a really nice home, which ironically, a lot of hoarders lives in really nice homes, but in most cases, what is the personality of a hoarder? They often seem energetically dampened and weighed down psychologically. And I would argue, as a result of the hoarding that occurs in their home, that they have probably suffered, most of them have probably suffered some very deep-seated trauma that they have not even begun to process through any of that internal clutter. And so all of that internal clutter around the Tupperwares and containers that they're keeping inside of their bodies, like all of those leftovers, and I mean, that's just a stupid example. But like all of that internal clutter is manifesting itself externally as actual clutter in their life and just hoarding all these things because it doesn't feel safe to let go of those things, which is also why we talked about decluttering the soma first. Because if your body doesn't feel safe to let go of the things, it won't let you let go of the things. Okay. Okay. So, and we can see, so many are, I will say that many are of a different generation, and they've likely actually gone through and lived through the Great Depression, which is why they feel it necessary to keep all of this stuff, when in actuality, it's not. When in actuality, if they hired a professional to come in and clear all the trash and all the clutter and how bad it gets, they would be in a much better mental and physical state as a result of like essentially it's like I envision it as being like a massage, like essentially working out those knots inside of their system. But the knots, instead of them being inside of their body, are like these knots inside of knots inside of their house in the form of clutter and in the form of like not, I mean, some of the hoarding houses that I have seen is like I physically cannot even understand how they're living that way, but if they're allowing themselves to live that way in their day-to-day life, then can you imagine what's going on inside of them? And so that's like hoarders are very extreme examples, but they're also a very good example of why decluttering is actually beneficial to our nervous system and our overall well being because all of the hoarders I know suffer from very deeply seated chronic illness. And that's because of the unprocessed and repressed trauma and emotions that they have all up in their system. And their house just happens to be an outward manifestation of that. So, and they're a great example, but a lot of people don't ever actually go through and do a big decluttering process. Like a lot of people just go through their lives accumulating more things and then like have to go get storage units because they have too much stuff. But when in actuality, if they decided to declutter their stuff, they wouldn't need the storage unit because they would actually be able to get rid of the things that they're trying to get rid of. And so, while a lot of us may not ever go through a proper decluttering process, letting go of items that no longer serve us and where we're going are essential for our overall well being. Because the other thing that I've also been learning more about, which is way more decluttering the emotions and decluttering the soma, is that the more that we repress emotions, the more likely they are to manifest as chronic illness because when we repress them, they just get stuck in our system. And if we keep our energetic field dynamic and keep the flow of belongings in and out moving, like once we buy something, we let go of something or whatever that may look like for us, whatever works for us, we're going to find ourselves be healthier, period. Like I can kind of guarantee that. I don't want to guarantee that, but thankfully we have no money back guarantee on this anyways. But like try it and see what happens to yourself and your overall health. Okay. So we are about to get into all of my favorite decluttering tips and and really just like a low key process for actually decluttering our home and all the things that I run into with my clients. And one thing that I really want to remind you of before we get into like the really heady stuff is that I'm going to be sharing with you very mind forward way of starting out this process. And the key word is starting out this process. This is really simply setting the stage for us to have a more enjoyable decluttering experience and for it not to be as stressful. One second. So, really, as this is really mind heavy, it's not meant to be a mind heavy process. This is not at all a logical process. Decluttering, we might need some structure and some bones and architecture to help us out with this whole entire thing, and I'm meaning metaphysical, like a metaphor of architecture, um to help us out. But at its core, decluttering is a very emotional and intuitive process. It is very feminine forward as it is, and frankly it is genuinely one of the most emotional things we will do when it comes to managing a household, period. Like it will be, because again, it's an extension of your energy field. So everything you're interacting with has a charge to it in some form, in some way. Like I can guarantee that most things in your house, you don't have a totally neutral charge to it. There is some sort of emotion behind it. And we are not like a lot of the way that people go about decluttering is from the mind and thinking like, oh, I haven't used such and such in the last year, like let me get rid of it. We're not asking ourselves that question. We are asking ourselves, what does this item bring up in my body? Which again is why we talked about the body first. And Marie Kondo would argue, does it spark joy? But honestly, to me, that is absolutely unrealistic. And especially if you have children or anything like that, it's unrealistic. So we simply want to understand the association our body has to a particular object and then decide if that's something that we want to stay with us and in our next phase of life, or leave the process and let it go. And it's funny, like, in this process, you might feel like the annoying therapist who's always asking us, "Well, how does that make you feel?" But, like, you do wanna be asking yourself that question. And genuinely, once you become more well-versed in this process, you will intuitively and immediately know upon touching the item, in most cases, whether or not you're gonna keep it. Like, you won't even need to ask yourself the question. You will be able to feel the sensation in your body and get a yes or a no from that and figure it out from there. So, here are all of my decluttering your home tips. And so I actually have a declutter guide that will help you with these mistakes that I see most of my clients make. This is a guide that I give to every single one of my clients. And honestly, this might actually be for some of you how you might have found the guide, and then this is how you found this course in the first place. So I will be sending this out to all of the spring cleaning challengers, just so you all have this with you as well. And it's also basically just like a piece of paper of what I'm about to go through. So first and foremost, because it's me and because like it is key, frankly, you first want to set your intention. And intention is defined as an aim or a plan. And something I found really interesting when I was researching this process is that in medicine, it is the healing process of a wound is called the intention, which I just found so fascinating, quite frankly, because by setting an intention and moving towards it, we actually naturally heal parts of ourselves that we didn't know needed healing along the way. And so I think that that's amazing that in medicine, intention is actually the healing process. Like, anyway, so we want to ask ourselves with this, what is it do I actually want to accomplish? Okay. And in the whole entire decluttering process, even inside, even even if it's in a very small space that you're working in. And so we kind of like I look at it as having like a larger intention, like overarching intention, and then an intention for a specific space. And so if we're wanting to do a whole house decluttering process, then that would be the intention. But we also want to understand what it is that we want to feel and how we want our house to feel, because that's inevitably a part of your intention, and why you are doing what you're doing and what you're letting go of is what you actually want it to feel like in your house. Um, and like I have a perfect example with this closet right here in my office is like where I don't have like a linen closet or anything like that. And so, and I keep all like I don't know, this closet over the year is a year and a half that I've been living here has become like a dumping ground of like all this stuff. And so it's a small space, but even with that small space, when I was decluttering it yesterday, the intention was to create a more cohesive space. So, and really like get out anything that wasn't necessary and then handle them, take them to their, whether or not they need to be donated or given to my mother or whatever the case may be, then organize what is left. And I wish I had a before and after because it's not much, but the space feels so much clearer and cleaner when I go in there. And that is the thing. It's like if a space is consistently giving us anxiety, we need to handle it. It might not be the first thing you handle, but if you open up a closet door, if you open up a cabinet door and it just causes a lot of anxiety, handle it. Because you will feel that association with that space every single time you open up that space. And like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't want spaces in my home that make me feel anxiety. Like, I really don't. That's also why I do this damn work? And so maybe in this season of life, you aren't interested in a whole home, full declutter and reorganization. And maybe the intention really is just as simple as decluttering your kitchen so that when you open up your cabinets, they don't cause you anxiety. And I don't know, you could find the tops to your Tupperwares or something like that. So we have setting our intention. Next, we want to know our values. And we'll talk about this a lot more in the Decluttering Your Wealth Day, day 3 of this challenge. because this process isn't necessarily about becoming a minimalist and having no stuff. Like that's really not the intention around here. Like again, that's unrealistic in most cases and quite frankly, no fun in my mind. And so this is really about keeping what is essential to you for you to live the life that you want to live and what your family, even if it is just you right now, values. And so you need to know what you value. So you better know what stays with you. Because if you don't know what you value, why would you like, you will struggle to make the decisions on what to get rid of and what not to get rid of. Like, for instance, I mean, I don't know why you would, but here's a solid example. If you don't value sports, why do you hold on to all this sports stuff that used to be your thing back in a past life or something like that? You know, why are you holding on to that stuff? If you, for instance, like I love having people over and I love having people come stay. I love hosting and like I love gathering people. So like I will want to hold on to all of my serving dishes and hold on to those extra towels that guests can use and hold on to the things that would contribute to that value coming to life. Like if I value community, then I should keep things in my house that are oriented towards community. If I value family, then I'm going to keep more heirlooms than somebody else, right? I would keep more things, right? And so, like for me, just to give you another example, it's like I value a clutter-free kitchen. I literally hate much stuff being on the countertops. My counters are pretty clear, and it still feels like too much stuff for me. So, what I would do is I will declutter the cabinets and organize everything in a way where less things are on the countertop and where it's just more in the cabinets and less on the countertop, like hello, where the things on the counter are being minimized. Like I have an amazing on the counter water filter. I absolutely love the water filter. I absolutely love the water that it gives me, but I absolutely hate the fact that it is on the countertop. Like it is the bane of my existence because it contributes to a lot of what I deem as clutter on the counter, and I don't like it. Anyways, I digress. There's also, and I meant to mention this earlier, there are more and more studies coming out, and I can find the actual information, but that visual clutter actually causes stress on a physiological level, and in particular, it causes more stress on women than on men. So if you're a woman who enjoys a beautiful space and a clutter-free space, there's a reason for that. It literally will help you stress less. It will contribute to your well-being overall in your life to have less clutter. Like 1 + 1 = 2. Anyway, so one of the biggest mistakes that I see my clients make when they come to me and they're wanting support, okay? And this is the main reason why I have people come to me for support anyways. Like I work with people in person home organizing and I work with people virtually home organizing. And and you might wonder how virtual home organization works, but it's really about putting the empowerment back in your hands to be able to organize your home. But one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make and why is not having any support. And by support, I even mean like not even somebody, a professional like me. What I mean by support is not even having a system in place to support them with the process and having no strategy around the process. And so a system is really just a set of procedures to which something is done. And so if we don't have a system, if we don't have any sort of strategy around our home organization, we're just going to go balls to the walls and you just start going versus taking the time to explore a strategy that leads you to the intention set above. And I'm not saying to totally define it, nitty gritty kind of strategy. I'm just meaning having an idea of where you are going and how you're going to get there. And this is why the intention is so important because then you have an end goal and where you actually want to take yourself and what you're actually aiming for. Because if there was no intention, how would you know that you're done? You won't. Like, but you could get to your intention and be like, oh, this is done. But in most cases that I have found with my clients where we are doing a whole home decluttering job and organization is like, and in person primarily, but like in any rate, like even the virtual clients run up against this, is like I have found that there are often dominoes that lead to the rest that must fall first, right? That so we have to think about what those are for you and your home. Like one of my first home organization clients, like her storage room needed to be cleared out and decluttered first so that the stuff that was going into the storage room had a place to go. But like a lot of people are just starting the decluttering and reorganization process on the outside of the storage room and wondering what to do with the stuff like what to do with the stuff when like they are wanting it to actually go in a storage room and like be out. Well, the storage room needs some space, right? So it's like this all makes logical sense. But because we are often so in our heads through this process, we tend to blank on these sorts of things, which is why hiring support like me is really helpful. So in the case of letting go specifically and what you are letting go, like I like to have a nice little system that I use regularly on the daily basis, like with my clients and with myself, frankly. And this is for the discard and the letting go piles only. And this is like, where we have our piles working for us for once. It's like we want to have a donate pile, we want to have a sell pile, and then we want to have a trash pile. Obviously, there's the whole keeping pile over there, but we want to have sell, donate, and trash. And so then you actually know, then like it's not as hard when you get to the end of the process. And another key system to have in place is one for maintenance. We can declutter all day long and create less clutter as a result of having less stuff, which is, inherently how it works. But if we're not being mindful of the day to day maintenance, or shall we say week to week maintenance of the space, then it's probably going to get cluttered again. So tidy spaces remain that way because they are maintained that way. And decluttering makes the process of maintenance easier on the back end, but we want to actually like but we actually need a system in place for that maintenance to actually like for, the maintenance, the like for us to actually sustain it being decluttered, right? Like we can again go through this whole entire process, go room by room, category by category, whatever process and system that you want to do, we can do that. We can let go of this stuff. But if you don't have some sort of means of continuing to keep it tidy, even if you do have children, like I understand so many people in this course have children or want children one day. And like I'm telling you, you probably don't need nearly as many toys as you think you do because the kid's going to play with the box, not the actual thing anyways. But at any rate, it's like there is a way to maintain and keep the space tidy, but we have to be mindful about the system that maintains that for us. Okay. Which brings me back, or brings me next to the another system that I think actually is more supportive to me than going room by room. And this is going category by category. And Marie Kondo talks about going like clothes and then kitchen stuff and then like the more sentimental items. But quite often, I think, and I mentioned this last time, like your stuff is some of the most charged and it has the most associations out of just about anything in your home, except for like the really sentimental things. Like, I don't know about you, but I am low key sentimental about some of my clothing. Like, and dead ass, like me, this is me. I keep those things that I have an emotional attachment to, especially around clothes. And I actually have like a keepsake clothes box. It's like the clothes that I never want to forget I had, which is like weirdly sappy and kind of emotional. And, some home organizers would be like, well, what the freaking fuck are you doing? But like, again, we want to do what is supportive and feels safe and protective to our system and not what everybody else wants us to do. This is your home. You get to keep the belongings that you want to keep. And so, yeah, I'm going everywhere. And so this by going by category, we're going to basically pull all of the clothes. Like, to give the example, is like, we could use kitchen things in this example, or we could use clothes. But it's like we're going to pull all the clothes from the closet and we're actually going to take it out. There is something about taking the thing out from its original location where you always keep it that makes you actually question whether or not you want to keep it there, whether or not you want to keep it, period. And so we actually do want to take all the dishes out of the cabinets, because what if it makes more sense to have it reorganized in a different way, right? And what if, it makes more sense to have the drink, like the glasses, near the refrigerator and near where you get the drinks, but maybe it's not like that right now. So, like, where we want to pull all the things from the space, we want to pull the clothes from the closet, and we want to go by shirts, then tanks, then pants, then skirts, then the intimates, and that type of a thing. And so going by category, even if they're in different parts of the house, allows us and gives us an idea of the volume of what you own in a particular category. Otherwise, like, my mom's a great example. Like, she's got, and I know some women like this, she's got a main closet, and then, but for, and like, well, okay, she's got a main closet right now that has all of her closet, like all of her clothing in one space. But prior to that, she had, like, some of her clothes, like her everyday clothes, in this closet. And then in my closet at her house, when I was living in her house, had like all the dress wear and more formal stuff, clothes, all that stuff. But she was just going to go declutter each one of those closets, she wouldn't have a true notion of the volume of clothes that she actually has. But when you take all of them from the places that they are, even when they're in different rooms, you get a better idea of how much you have. And quite honestly, it can bring up enough that you're like, I just can't have this much of this stuff. Like, yo girl has more mugs than like any one person should have. That's partially because I have a Starbucks You Are Here mug collection. And like, I'm just not willing to get rid of all of those, frankly. I've gotten rid of, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them, which tells you how much I actually have. And then I have actual mugs outside of outside of the Starbucks mugs. But I love mugs, and I just think they're so fun to have a ton of different mugs that, like, yeah, but also whenever I declutter my kitchen stuff, I have to be mindful of actually going through the Starbucks mugs and the regular mugs, because otherwise I wouldn't be so aware of how many mugs that I've actually got. Okay? That's just an example. Um, Also, taking everything out of its space and bringing it into, like, taking it out of the closet and putting it on your bed or whatever the case may be, also gives you like a more daunting experience of everything that you've got, but it also gives you a better idea of the inventory that you're working with. And like, I can't tell you the amount of people who we go through their closet and they're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot I have this thing because it's been back here in this corner over here. And like, think about it. If you hadn't pulled everything out of the closet, you probably wouldn't have found that thing. And that's just clothes. It can happen anywhere in your home. And so another key thing that, like, I think a lot of people forget about when they're organizing their home and doing spring cleaning is that we always want to simplify and declutter first before we organize. Because why do we want to organize something that we don't actually want to keep and that we actually want to get rid of? Like, that is needless energy. And so that's also why, like, in the course of this spring cleaning challenge, we're talking so much more about decluttering than really organizing, because decluttering is the key part of the process and honestly, like, a key part of where people get stuck. Um, and so once we can simplify and declutter and we're clear on what we actually want to keep, we can then categorize within that home organization too. Like, keeping all of your office stuff, the pens and the papers and everything in like this tiny little box so that you always know where it is. And by taking everything out of where it is, you will know where things are and have a home. You could ask me where something is, I can tell you exactly where it is in my stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff these days anymore, but I also know exactly where everything is. So if I do need to retrieve something, I can go get it very easily, or I could literally instruct somebody on where to find it because I know it, the inventory of it, because I've gone through my stuff so many times, but also I've organized my stuff a lot in that process. And so that was a bunch of heady stuff. That was the overall strategy, and we've defined our intention and our values, and we've developed a strategy and a system on how we want to attack this. You can use the category or you can go by room, but I do highly recommend going by category. So that's all very heady, like I said. And then this is really where the mind stops running the show. We want it to take its back seat from now on. And like if you're into the masculine, feminine, energetic dynamics, like we've set up the masculine structure that's now going to allow the feminine to flow within it. Okay. And like we need that inside of organization. We need the structure, we need the intention, we need the strategy and the systems, because that structure and that architecture allows us to organize the way that we want. It allows the space to flow how we want it to flow, and the emotions to have a container within themselves when we go through this process. And once this is all defined, once you've gotten clear on your values and your intentions, and we've developed a little bit more of a strategy, whatever strategy that you've got and systems that you're using, this is where the process gets emotional. And emotionally speaking, because our stuff is an extension of our energy field, this can bring up so much stuff when we are going through our belongings. It is literally an external manifestation of who you are and represents your values, your intentions, and who you once were, not necessarily who you are now. And it's like having yourself staring back at yourself. And it can be really, really intimidating in most cases. And we'll talk about how to handle that intimidation next. But the one thing that I really want to keep in mind, and like the one thing that I really want you to keep in mind when you're going through this process, is keeping compassion for yourself and a loving awareness at the forefront of your mind. Because for, no matter how bad a state of the room may be, for, the judgment of how much longer you held on to something than you really intended to, there's a tendency for a lot of judgment and shame and guilt to come up through this process. Guilt for what you're getting rid of, shame for what you've kept, shame for the memories that some of the items hold, and like different processes. Now, in this whole entire process, as this is coming up, like that's natural. If you don't feel anything when you're decluttering, you're not doing it right. Period. Okay? Hold compassion for yourself during this process first and foremost, because it will save you through this process. So we've started organizing, and all of a sudden, all your stuff, not all of a sudden, but we're about an hour into this process, and all your stuff is strewn about, and all over your bed is all of your clothes. And you're going through all your clothes and you're looking at your stuff and you're feeling immensely overwhelmed because you feel like you have so much left to do, that you've like opened a Pandora's box and you're like, I don't even know how to begin to like come back to this. That is the freeze response that we were talking about on day one. This is otherwise known as overwhelm, but overwhelm is the freeze response. Like it's just a different word for the freeze response. And again, if you don't like, I'm a professional, and I'm a professional. It's not even stuff I'm emotionally attached to. And I still get overwhelmed with the process, partially because I can literally feel some of the energy coming off of some of this stuff, and I can feel people's emotional attachment to it. And it can be overwhelming for me, not even necessarily like that I have so much left to do, but just the genuine process of the process. Like you are touching, even though it's not my stuff, I'm still touching somebody's stuff, and I can still feel the energy of that. And so, um, if you get to the point of feeling immensely overwhelmed and like you can't go on, In some cases, the way that you help freeze, in most cases, outside of decluttering, is to actually rest and pause, and that's how you quote unquote unthaw. In the process of decluttering, if you've been going at it for quite some time for the day, it might be a better idea to pause. It might be and like back away from it, go on a walk, do something else, get your mind out of it. Like when we were writing papers in high school and college, when we got overwhelmed and like felt like we would just take a break. And so like I highly recommend breaks throughout this process, but don't go like, well, you can do whatever you want. Like don't go as crazy as to like, just straight up stop the process altogether when it's all strewn out on the floor. Like I always recommend if you get started getting to a stopping point, whether or not it's the full-fledged intention or just like what you want to get done in that day, even if it's not what you intended to get done that day. If it's too much for your nervous system and you're getting overwhelmed, it's too much. Okay. So some of that is that feeling of feeling like you have too much to do. Some of the overwhelm is the actual feeling that you have too much to do. And so much of that freeze, which again, it's the survival response that we talked about on in our last class. It's your survival, that was survival response in action. And you are feeling overwhelmed by the fact that you are seeing all of your stuff, all of the memories attached to the stuff, and you are feeling all of the emotional charge of every item sprawled out on your floor. One of my first home organization clients, and really who actually helped me develop energetic design for what it is so energetically in tune as a woman that she will actually feel it's not even, she will have the emotional charge of the items come up as she's actually doing it. And so, like, the process of decluttering with her is a slower process because so much of what we're doing is actually emotional decluttering and really working through what is coming up when it's coming up versus like it all being sprawled out on the floor and like that being where the charge comes in, if that makes sense. And like you really want to feel what it is that you're coming up or feel what it is that is coming up all the way through. Like let it run its course. And so, frankly, and again, like again, like I've said this a little bit, but like if you don't get overwhelmed at some point in this process, quite frankly, I don't think you're doing it right. And basically, that's all to say that it makes sense, perfect sense, biologically and physiologically. It makes perfect sense why you would find that overwhelming and why overwhelm happens in the first place. And the key to navigating overwhelm, which is essentially again the freeze response wrapped up in another word, is helping yourself with different stabilization tools. So going back to day one, I just want to quickly remind you of all of the tools for stabilizing. So that looks like grounding. And so that's feeling into the weightiness of your body and where you are. Then we have orienting, which is just looking at the space around you and not, judging it for anything like that. You've got all those piles in front of you. You just want to look around and really be in tune and like just observe what you're observing. And then the other one is self contact, which is like, giving yourself a hug like this and letting yourself know that it's okay. That type of a stabilization tool. And then the fourth one is your breath. And I kind of skated over this one last time, but frankly, it's one of the more important stabilization tools. But I'm wary of giving it too much clout in some cases because it can be leveraged as a means to just like not actually allow the emotion to fully move through your body. And, you can like use the breath to just get yourself out of a bad state. But like you do want to use a way to stabilize yourself is through the breath. And in particular, a longer exhale is going to help you go into that parasympathetic state. Because if you are feeling if the survival response is coming out, then there is some sort of stress occurring and you want to get yourself into more of a parasympathetic state and really like and one that's like not just frozen. um which can be done through the breath. Yes. Okay. Um And also, I had no intention of keeping y'all here for this long, but we are almost done with our notes. Um, and so those 4 tools, your breath, grounding, self-contact, and orienting are the tools that you can use when you're navigating overwhelm through this process. And I'm telling you, if you really need to, literally leave and come back to it. Nobody's saying that you need to get it done in this amount of time and la la la. Like, it will be okay if you just take a step back and go on a walk and take a break, because that's going to help stabilize you and kind of remove yourself from the overwhelm and that feeling more. And then you have literal spaciousness around what you're trying to create space around. So, one point that I really want to drive home within decluttering is the concept of being way too focused on what you're letting go versus the mindset of what you're keeping. And that is a totally different mindset. Like what you are letting go of versus the mindset of what you are keeping. It's like we really haven't talked much about mindset in this course, but like this is a key piece of mindset for decluttering, because if we focus too heavily on what we're letting go of, we will lose sight of what it is that we're actually keeping, and that's what actually is like staying with us. And also, like, straight up, letting go is a negative mindset and keeping is a positive mindset. We want to keep. Oh, hello. Okay, my connection went out there for a second. Okay. um we want to focus on this, and if you focus more on what you are keeping, it feels more like a process of enrichment, because and it will then therefore make your experience of decluttering better, because your focus is on what stays with you in this next chapter versus what you are letting go of. And so you actually are holding a more anabolic energy around what's happening, even though you are letting go of things, but you're focused on what's staying, on what you're keeping, and on what actually gets to contribute to your life moving forward. Which brings me to my last point in terms of decluttering tips. And this comes down to your appreciation. And for all of those things that we are letting go, we want to appreciate them. Quite often, my clients struggle with the letting go of certain items, and maybe because they were a gift or they feel that they need to just in case they need it, whatever the case may be, but they might struggle with the actual process of letting go. And one thing that helps with that process is appreciating the item for its purpose. So sometimes, in the case of a gift, especially, sometimes the purpose of an object is simply for that gift to be a gift. Maybe its purpose was solely to be given to you. But there's no point in holding on to something that you don't actually want to take with you in your next phase of life. Truly, there is no point. And so, and maybe the purpose of an object was the purchase itself was the lesson. I can't tell you the amount of things that I've purchased that I later was like, I need to return that. But like, you can't return it yet. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're just keeping the item, and the purchase itself was a lesson. Also, can't tell you the amount of coaching programs that I've invested in where the purchase was the lesson more than the actual lessons were the lessons, but that's a story for another time. And so we really just want to hold awareness, and we need to hold awareness around when an object has reached its fulfillment of purpose in our lives. And maybe its purpose is to move on and support somebody else in their purpose. And like, maybe the purpose is giving it a new purpose because it has just sat on the shelf for a year or whatever the case may be. So as we are letting go of the things, something that also can help the process just feel better for us is offering gratitude and expressing our appreciation and taking the time to thank the items that you're getting rid of. Express the appreciation for how they brought value, or how they brought value in the way that they did into your life. Whether or not it was a gift from somebody else or something you've used a million times that you're just ready to let go of. Or like, I don't know, that going out top that you had so many fun nights in. It's like, thank you and goodbye. Like, I don't need you anymore. But like, thank you, thank the objects and thank them for all of what they gave you in the time that they were your belonging and that they were a part of your energetic field. But after that, let them go. Let them out of your field. And if you really want to, take a picture of it. I don't know. I've taken some pictures of things just so I could remember that I had them as an object and like had them as a thing. Which might totally break the energetic field thing, but then it's not actually taking up energy in your space. It's just taking up digital energy. Um, but it really, to actually sit there, and I know they're inanimate objects, they don't actually necessarily feel it, but like it helps us feel better, and it does inherently make the inanimate object feel better by taking the time to really appreciate what it is that it has done for us in our lives, and have gratitude for that. And let me say that while we are talking appreciation, another a less thought of definition of appreciation is the actual increase in value that appreciation is. So depreciation is when the value of something decreases, an asset decreases over time, like a car. But appreciation is when the actual value of something increases. And it is worth noting and asterisking and just emphasizing hardcore that when we are decluttering, we want to keep the things that will increase your value. We want to hold on to the things that are increasing our value. If its associations are such that the item is decreasing our value, it is time to thank it and let it go. Again, the example of like the mug with the X, like I just need to let it go. It's not decreasing my value at some crazy rate, but it is decreasing my value on the basis that I am feeling a negative emotional charge around it every time I see it, which is every day. um, and so that to differentiate between like whether or not it's increasing our value or decreasing our value is a very like if it's decreasing in value, then and it's decreasing your value, that's what I mean, not its value, but if it's decreasing your value, then that's a clear indication that that piece has fulfilled its purpose for you and that it is time to let it go. But that is a brief little introduction, shall we say, to next week's class into our decluttering our wealth. But that is all that I have for you today, which I know that this class specifically is why you came here today to the overall course and to the spring cleaning challenge. And we covered literally so much ground, like 100 LOL, an hour worth of information. And you have so much to work with. And we talked about why decluttering matters the way that it does and how it creates such an impact, all the way to what we can do to better support ourselves in the decluttering process in the day-to-day. So now that you have all of this information, this bounty of information, your homework is to go both set your intention, define your values, and develop a strategy and systems that work for you, and a system of discarding, which I gave you, a system of actually decluttering, which is by category, and then a system for maintenance. And you don't have to define this like crazy, but the key thing here, the homework until we meet next week, is actually going and doing it. And if you didn't know, now you know. I've been doing this process with you. I decluttered this closet. I had a guest this weekend, so I didn't do very much decluttering. But this weekend, I am so excited because I must confess that half of my stuff has been in storage for almost 3 years now, and I'm over it being there. And I'm figuring all that out. And I'm also I need to declutter what it is that's not in storage, and I also need to declutter what is in storage. But the lessons of what that does to your energy is a whole class for another time. But really, you want to develop your strategy and your systems, and we want to start doing it. We want to start actually decluttering and creating the space that we want to create. So, and keeping in mind that you want to be focused on keeping what it is that is valuable to you and your family. So that is all that we have for today for the spring cleaning challenge. And thank you all for being here. And I wish you the happiest tidying possible. If you happen to have any questions come up in the next week, I am here via email and or Instagram DM, whatever floats your boat. And I am happy to answer any questions that you have. And yeah, happy tidying. I will see you guys next time.